Indigo children, according to a pseudo-scientific New Age concept, are children who are believed to possess special, unusual, and sometimes supernatural traits or abilities. They are sometimes also referred to as crystal children or star children. The idea is based on concepts developed in the 1970s by Nancy Ann Tappe and further developed by Tober and Carroll. The concept of indigo children gained popular interest with the publication of a series of books in the late 1990s and the release of several films. In the following decade, a variety of books, conferences and related materials have been created surrounding belief in the idea of indigo children and the nature and abilities. The interpretations of these beliefs range from the being the next stage in human evolution, in some cases possessing paranormal abilities such as telepathy, to the belief that they are more empathetic and creative than their peers. Although no scientific studies give credibility to the existence of indigo children of the traits, the phenomenon appeals to some parents whose children have been diagnosed with learning disabilities and to parents seeking to believe that their children are special. Critics view this as a way for parents to avoid considering pediatric treatment or a psychiatric diagnosis. The list of traits used to describe the children has also been criticized for being vague enough to be applied to almost anyone, a form of the four effect. Origins. The term indigo children originated with parapsychologist and self-described synesthete and psychic Nancy Ann Tappe, who developed the concept in the 1970s. Tappe published the book Understanding Your Life Through Color in 1982, describing the concept, stating that during the mid-1960s she began noticing that many children were being born with indigo auras. The idea was later popularized by the 1998 book The Indigo Children. The New Kids Have Arrived, written by husband and wife self-help lecturers Carroll and Tober. In 2002, an international conference on indigo children was held in Hawaii, drawing 600 attendees, with subsequent conferences the following years in Florida and Oregon. Several films have also been produced on the subject, including 2 English feature films in 2003 and 2005, and a documentary in 2005. Sarah W. Wheaton suggests in a 2009 article in Nova Religio that the social construction of indigo children is a response to an apparent crisis of American childhood, in the form of increased youth violence and diagnoses of attention deficit disorder and attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. Wheaton believes parents label their children as indigo to provide an alternative explanation for the children's improper behavior stemming from AD and ADHD claimed characteristics. Descriptions of indigo children include that they are empathic, curious, and strong-willed, are often perceived by friends and family as being strange, possess a clear sense of self-definition and purpose, show a strong innate subconscious spirituality from early childhood, have a strong feeling of entitlement or deserving to be here. Other alleged traits include high intelligence quotient, inherent intuitive ability, resistance to rigid, control-based paradigms of authority. According to Tober and Carroll, indigo children may function poorly in conventional schools due to the rejection of rigid authority, the being smart or more spiritually mature than the teachers, and the lack of response to guilt, fear or manipulation-based discipline. According to research psychologist Russell Barkley, the New Age movement has yet to produce empirical evidence of the existence of indigo children, as the traits most commonly attributed to them are closely aligned with the four effect, so vague that they could describe nearly anyone. Many critics see the concept of indigo children as made up of extremely general traits, a sham diagnosis that is an alternative to a medical diagnosis, with a complete lack of science or studies to support it. The lack of scientific foundation is acknowledged believed by some believers, including Doreen Virtue, author of The Care and Feeding of Indigos, and James Twyman, who produced 2 films on indigo children and who offers materials and courses related to the phenomenon. Virtue has been criticized for claiming to have a Ph.D., despite this being awarded by California Coast University, a then unaccredited institution sometimes accused of being a diploma mill. Indigo as an alternative to diagnosis. Retired professor of philosophy and skeptic Robert Carroll notes that many of the commentators on the indigo phenomenon are of varying qualifications and expertise, and parents may prefer labeling the child an indigo as an alternative to a diagnosis that implies poor parenting, narcissistic parenting, damage, or mental illness. This is a belief echoed by academic psychologists. Some mental health experts are concerned that labeling a disruptive child an indigo may delay proper diagnosis and treatment that could help the child look into the parenting style that may be causing the behavior. Others have stated that many of the traits of indigo children could be more prosaically interpreted as simple unruliness and alertness. Relationship to attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. Many children labeled indigo by the parents are diagnosed with attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, and Tober and Carroll's book The Indigo Children link the concept with diagnosis of ADHD. David Cohen points out that labeling a child an indigo is an alternative to a diagnosis that implies mental illness, which may appeal to many parents. Cohen has stated, "The view in medicine is that ADHD is a defect. It's a disorder. If you're a parent, the idea of gifted is much more appealing than the idea of a disorder." Linking the concept of indigo children with the distaste for the use of Ritalin to control ADHD, Robert Carroll states, "The hyper-near hysteria surrounding the use of Ritalin has contributed to an atmosphere that makes it possible for a book like Indigo Children to be taken seriously. Given the choice, who wouldn't rather believe that children are special and chosen for some high mission rather than that they have a brain disorder?" Stephen Hinshaw, a professor of psychology at the University of California, Berkeley, states that concerns regarding the over-medicalization of children are legitimate, but even gifted children with ADHD learn better with more structure rather than less, even if the structure initially causes difficulties. Many labeled as indigo children are or have been homeschooled. Many children labeled as indigo children have the same identifying criteria as those children who have experienced being raised by a narcissistic parent, and are considered to have been emotionally abused. A 2011 study suggested parents of children with ADHD who label their children as indigos may perceive problematic behaviors emblematic of ADHD to be more positive and experience less frustration and disappointment, though they still experience more negative emotions and conflicts than parents of children without a diagnosis. Relation to autism. Crystal children, a concept related to indigo children, has been linked to the autistic spectrum. Proponents recategorize autistic symptoms as telepathic powers, and attempt to the autistic traits associated with them are as part of a positive identity. Autism researcher Mitzi Walt states that there may be inherent dangers to these beliefs, leading parents to deny the existence of impairments, avoid proven treatments, and spend considerable money on unhelpful interventions. Walt states that parents may also transmit belief systems to the child that have self-aggrandizing, confusing, or potentially frightening commercialization. The concept of indigo children has been criticized for being less about children and their needs, and more about the profits to be made by self-styled experts in book and video sales, as well as lucrative counseling sessions, summer camps, conferences, and speaking engagements. discussion as a new religious movement. Nancy Ann Tappe originally noted that one type of indigo child, despite being seen as a bully, was expected to lead new religious movements. One pagan author, Lorna Tedder, anecdotally notes that every pagan woman she knew who had or was going to have a child believed the child was an indigo child. Zora Kermani explains that, despite the problems with authority, uncontrollable tempers, and overbearing egos, indigo children are many pagan parents' ideal offspring, sensitive, psychic, and strong-willed, but also notes the concept is less about the child's psychic abilities than the parent's own hopes and desire for distinction from the less evolved masses. Daniel Klein, in an essay titled The New Kids, Indigo Children, A New Age Discourse, notes that the magical belief that the innocence of children equates to spiritual powers has existed for centuries, and that the indigo child movement is rooted in a religious rejection of science-based medicine. In particular, he claims that Nancy Ann Tappe derived some of her ideas from Charles Webster Leadbetter, and that the New Age adoption of the concept is a reaction against diagnoses of ADHD and autism. Klein also discusses how Carroll and Tober have tried to distance themselves from religious beliefs about indigo children in order to maintain control of the concept, and how skeptics and New Agers alike both make rhetorical appeals to science to legitimize their ideological beliefs regarding the existence of indigo children. At the 2014 University of Cambridge Festival of Ideas, anthropologist Beth Singler discussed how the term indigo children functioned as a new religious movement, along with Judaism. Singler's work focuses in the indigo movement as a part of an overall discussion on wider moral panics around children parenting, the diagnosis of conditions such as ADHD and autism, and conspiracy theories about Big Pharma and vaccinations.